Cersei doesn't need to kill Odysseus. She can turn his entire crew into animals. And in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, that's exactly what makes her so terrifying. But here's the part that's easy to miss. Cersei isn't simply the villain. She's one of the most complicated characters in the entire story. And once you understand why she transforms these men, her entire character changes. In Homer's Odyssey, Circe is a powerful sorceress living on the island of Aeaea. She's the daughter of Aeolus, the sun god. And when Odysseus' men arrive at her home, she welcomes them inside. Food, wine, luxury. It looks almost too perfect. Until they drink what she gives them. One by one, the men are transformed into pigs. But Nolan's film adds an important layer to Circe. She isn't portrayed as simply a woman who enjoys hurting men. She's someone carrying her own history, and that changes the meaning of everything that happens on her island. In the original myth, the transformation is more than just a magical trick. Circe is testing the men, and the result reveals something about human nature. The men become pigs, but they don't necessarily lose everything that made them human. They still understand what happened to them. They are trapped inside animal bodies. That's disturbing enough. But then Odysseus arrives, and Circe tries the same magic on him. Except, it doesn't work. Odysseus has been protected by Hermes. And suddenly, the woman who appeared completely in control is facing someone she cannot simply dominate. Odysseus draws his weapon. Circe realizes she has underestimated him. And this is where her character becomes much more interesting. Because instead of fighting him, she changes strategy. This is the first major clue to understanding Circe. She isn't powerful because she can simply overpower everyone. She's powerful because she knows how to control a situation. When brute force fails, she uses intelligence. Circe invites Odysseus to stay. She promises safety. She restores his men. And suddenly, the relationship between them changes. The monster becomes a host. The enemy becomes an ally. And the island that once looked like a trap begins to look like paradise. But there's one enormous problem. Odysseus is supposed to be going home. Instead, he stays. For months. In Homer's version, he remains on Circe's island for about a year. And that tells us something important about both characters. Circe doesn't only represent danger. She represents temptation. And here's the twist. Circe isn't necessarily trying to destroy Odysseus. In fact, she eventually becomes one of the people who helps him survive. Once Odysseus decides to leave, Circe gives him crucial information. She tells him where he needs to go next. The underworld. He must seek out the prophet Tiresias. And later, Circe warns him about dangers waiting along his journey. So think about what just happened. The woman who transformed his men into animals becomes one of the people who helps him get home. That's not a normal villain. It's something much more complicated. Circe is both an obstacle and a guide, a threat and an ally. And that contradiction is exactly what makes her fascinating. And this is where Nolan's version becomes especially interesting. The film has reportedly given its female characters more emotional depth than their traditional portrayals. Circe isn't just there to test Odysseus. She's given agency, a history, and her own reasons for distrust. That matters because the traditional story is often remembered from Odysseus' perspective. He arrives. Circe attacks. He defeats her. She helps him. And he leaves. But look at the story from Circe's perspective. A powerful stranger arrives on her island with armed men. She has no reason to trust them. So she protects herself. Her methods are horrifying. But her fear isn't necessarily irrational. And suddenly, the pigs mean something different. They aren't just a magical punishment. They're a demonstration of power. A warning. But there's another side to Circe. She doesn't simply want power. She understands transformation. And that's important, because throughout the Odyssey, transformation happens again and again. Men become monsters. Heroes become strangers. Warriors become survivors. And Odysseus himself changes. Circe simply makes that transformation literal. She forces men to become what they might already be underneath. That's why the pig transformation can be read symbolically. The men aren't just turned into animals. Their civilized identity is stripped away. And suddenly, the question becomes uncomfortable. Was Circe revealing something about them? Or imposing something on them? The story never gives us a simple answer. And that's exactly why the character has survived for thousands of years. So what is Circe actually supposed to represent? There isn't one confirmed answer. but there are several powerful interpretations. First, temptation. Circe offers Odysseus something he desperately wants after years of war. Safety, food, comfort, and a place where he doesn't have to keep fighting. Second, power. Circe lives alone and controls her environment. She doesn't need an army. She doesn't need a kingdom. Her knowledge is her weapon. Third, transformation. She forces Odysseus and his crew to confront the boundary between human and animal. And finally, fourth, choice. Odysseus can stay. He can live comfortably. Or he can leave everything behind and continue toward Aeaea. Circe doesn't make that decision for him. She gives him the choice. And that may be the most important thing about her. And here's the strangest part. Circe is remembered as the witch who turned men into pigs. But that's only the beginning of her story. She eventually restores them. She gives Odysseus information that helps him continue his journey. And she becomes one of the few figures in his journey who actually understands what lies ahead. So perhaps Circe was never meant to be simply defeated. Perhaps she was meant to change Odysseus. Because before he can reach Aeaea, he has to survive the temptation to stop searching for it.